Blog Talk Radio.
Hit it, baby. Yeah.
Have you been searching for a conservative talk radio?
Yes, I have.
There is a young cowboy. He lives on the range.
There was some weird person there.
His horse and his cattle are his only companions. He works in the saddle and he sleeps.
Good morning, everybody.
Waiting for summer.
Good morning, Monday. Yeah.
Well, we got the wrong music, folks.
that is, I got to tell you, Scotty, that is some crappy button pushing, my friend. But it can't be helped. It can't be helped.
It is.
I'm on the road. I leave it up to Scott to play me some music. All of a sudden, some weird. What was that? Somebody screaming, and then I got James Taylor, Rockabye, Sweet Baby Jam. We're trying to wake people up on a Monday morning, Scotty. I don't care if you only got 5 hours of sleep. I got 10 hours of sleep. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. It's Conover U on a Monday morning. It's 7:31 here on the West Coast. In Texas, it's 9:31, and somewhere else it's another time. But right now, you're listening to something, I don't know, some raving lunatic. My name is Rodney Lee Conover, and that guy, screwing up all the buttons, is preacher Scotty Osborne. Scotty, say something to me. Quick.
Hey, I'll tell you, I love Blog Talk, and I love the technology. It really is incredible technology. But when you have a studio that relies on the internet, and it jumps.
This is the part where you blame somebody else for your problems with buttons. That's what this part is, right? Hey, is it? What is it, like Monday? It's great. Oh, you should be out here in the desert, man. It's cold. It's really cold. But it's beautiful and sunny. And last night was so stormy. And I just love this time of year. The only thing I don't like about this time of year, Scotty, and I don't know how you feel about this as a man of the cloth, but the only thing I don't like about this time of year is Christmas music. Oh, shut that Christmas music off, please. I try to avoid it. You can't avoid it. Oh, it just drives me nuts. I hate it. It's been playing since Halloween this year. It drives me nuts. But that aside, it's a beautiful morning, and God has given me one more day to live, and I could not be happier for that opportunity and my opportunity to be on Conover U with Scotty and the doctor, and who knows, Jennifer might even show up today. Who knows? It's going to be great, though. I'll tell you, once again, Scotty, I am right on, told you months ago, and I told everybody months ago, this is classic tortoise in the hare. This is the tortoise in the hare, and guess who the tortoise is? Ted Cruz, and he crosses the finish line first. He is slowly but surely moving up. He's going to win Iowa. Who cares about New Hampshire? What's there, 15 socialists over there? South Carolina, who knows what those idiots are going to do. But he's going to win Iowa. We're going to come over to Nevada, which is actually a real state with gambling. And he's going to win that, too. And it's off to the races after that, buddy. What do you think?
Oh, I agree with you, Rodney. And most of our listeners know I pay attention a lot to Real Clear Politics. And everybody knows that polls are not a predictive early in the time for the winner. Polls can say anything at this point. But Real Clear Politics has those charts, and they show trends and they show momentum. And I would encourage everybody to go look at that chart of the Republican nomination. There are some very telling things in there. First thing is when Donald Trump came into the race, the one who took the biggest dive was Jeb Bush. And literally Donald Trump put his head on the neck of Jeb Bush, and he's been there ever since. But if you notice, there's only one candidate who has lasted this long who rose during the time that Donald Trump was rising, and that is Ted Cruz. Now, Scott Walker did as well. for a while, but of course he peaked too soon. Scott Walker had a huge problem. He peaked way too soon, and he just wasn't the best on stage. His messaging is not just, he's just kind of too quiet and too something. But Donald Trump, as Donald Trump has risen, and Ben Carson's had some of this as well, holding everybody down. But Ted Cruz has been the only one, you watch that black line as it goes across that chart, who has slowly but steadily done exactly what you said he would do and has continued to do that, and that's the tortoise and the hare. He has slowly risen. A few weeks back, there was kind of this conglomeration of people for third place. You had Donald Trump in first, Carson a little bit below him in second, but you had Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio kind of vying for that third place for a while. And then all of a sudden, Rubio and Ted Cruz started jumping away. Jeb Bush, Carly Fiorina started falling down. Fiorina's at the bottom. She's getting like 1% in the polls right now. And then there was this little fight between Jeb between Cruz and Rubio. But Rubio's starting to lose that fight. He's starting to fall down. He's starting to head south in the polls, and Ted Cruz is starting to make a major rise. He's got incredible momentum in Iowa, which is really important. Now, Iowa is not predictive, but very important to help put Ted Cruz in the news media sites. And it looks like he's going to most likely win Iowa, Rodney.
Well, it's interesting. By the way, just let me know when the doctor's in the queue, if he gets in the queue. But, the Democrats are always screaming about how diverse they are and how the Republicans, they're the party of the old white person. And you take a look at the Democrats, and what do you got? You got a couple of old white people. Now, I got nothing against old white people. I happen to be an old white people myself. But when they scream about diversity, just look at the Cruz thing. Look at the Republican. Look, Cruz's dad. For instance, Cruz's dad is Cuban, right? He's a Cuban. Rubio's dad is a Cuban. You can see Chris Christie from Cuba. So there's a lot of Cuba there. You know what's bad about radio is you just don't hear the people laughing at home when you're being hysterical. That's another problem.
I'm laughing.
But if would you take yourself off mute when you're laughing, for crying out loud? I don't know how I'm doing. When if Cruz, I'm not saying he's going to do this, but if he did, if Cruz when Cruz wins, okay, if he were to pick Rubio as the vice president, we would have a literal boatload of Cubans running for office. It would be the Ricky Ricardo ticket. You know what I mean? When he debated Hillary and asked her about his emails, he could say, "Hillary, you got a lot of splaining to do." He could make that joke.
Oh, I love it.
Because they're all Cubans. We got Cuba, and it's ironic because we're normalizing relations with Cuba, and now there's nothing but Cubans running everywhere for president on the Republican side. Now you got this really, and it doesn't stop there. We got Ben Carson. We got Dr. Ben Carson, a wonderful man, brilliant. He's the American dream personified, and now he's a brilliant citizen. He's surgically separated conjoined twins. And then we got Donald Trump, who has actually dated twins. So there's a lot. What I'm saying to you is there's a lot of diversity. Bless her heart, this Carly Fiorina, whatever it is, because, the only thing she was ever going to get is a vice presidential, consideration. And so as long as she can stay at the big boy table during the debate, she'll be fine. But I think we were talking about it earlier. I think her problem, delivery. I mean, she's really smart. What she says is correct, and she's very politically incorrect. She talks, more like Donald Trump. And but she's got that delivery that just kind of reminds you of the lunch lady when you're growing up, It's a little snitty. She's a little snitty. Yeah, and there was that whole thing where Donald Trump was basically saying what I'm saying. And they accused him of calling her ugly, which he didn't do. He said, she's beautiful, you know, and instead of her being gracious, she kind of, well, yeah, we all know what you meant. You know, it's just like every bitch that you've ever spoken to. That's her problem. Her people got to tell her, look, you got to quit with the forced smile. You got to quit with the snittiness. You do a lot better. I don't know. Maybe she gets vice president. She's not Cuban, though. She does not have the, again, Ted Cruz's dad, Cuban. Rubio is Cuban. You can see Chris Christie from Cuba, and there was another Cuban person or something. Anyway, that's our Cuban rundown.
I got a button I got to push, Rodney.
Push that button, because I know what time it is. All right, that's enough. That's enough. I got to get around to this. That means our buddy Mark Bronstein is here, Doctor to the Stars. He's 25 years in practice over there at Sherman Oaks, and oh my God, Dr. Bronstein, what a weekend, huh? What were you doing? Are you here? Hello, Mark.
My whole body, yeah, my whole body. I'm here.
What? Yeah, you're here, buddy. You are so
here. I don't know
here.
what happened. I called in and it didn't. The thing, you know, the usual mechanism was on the wrist or something. But my
everybody
whole body.
Everybody has an excuse to that. But go ahead. How was your weekend, my friend?
My whole body aches. I got a lot of exercise. I was moving from one part of Los Angeles to another part of Los Angeles, and
for people that don't hang on my every word, Dr. Bronstein took the leap once again last week and got engaged, and we're all very happy for him.
Thank you.
He did not tell me. He did not tell me that he was moving. Are you moving closer to your engagee?
Yeah, I moved out to from the San Fernando Valley to Los Angeles, right about a few blocks from Sunset Boulevard, near the Hollywood Sunset Strip. You can walk down the Sunset Strip, Grauman's Chinese Theater. You can walk there.
So you moved to West Hollywood. You're down in the gay district.
Yeah.
That is.
And
I was born there. Beautiful.
I was
beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't been there since I was born, really. I never really hung out in that part of L.A., and other than as a tourist or something. So it's interesting. The tour buses go by all the time, showing the stars' homes. And
are you a little bit above Are you a little bit above Sunset or below Sunset?
Above.
It's beautiful. Well, there's nothing better than that part. They call, you know, because a lot of gay people there, they call it the gay part of Hollywood, West Hollywood. But let me tell you, I used to work there, and that part of Los Angeles is really, really nice. So you moved to a really nice area.
Very safe too. You know, the gay men that live there, I don't know about how many women, but they don't tend to be violent. There's no graffiti. They tend not to litter. So it's cleaner than
all the neighborhoods are beautiful, and
they take care of their yard. Yeah, and I was actually born not far from their Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital in 1959, and I'm sure it was a different neighborhood back then, right by Children's Hospital, but I never really lived in that area. Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm back to where I was born, within a mile or so. Anyway, that's what I did, and I had one thing I wanted to say on the show that I was thinking about that this weekend, and now I'm trying to remember what it was. Let's see, it was that. I was thinking about. You know, I was in Riverside a week before this terrorist bombing occurred, and I think I mentioned that I went out to this Indian casino. I went with my fiance. Went to play a few slot machines. You know, just fun, and so we were there for about an hour, and we drove up, and there's a giant mosque right by the San Juan Mangel, something like that, San Juan Indian Bingo or something. But anyway, there's a giant mosque. I didn't know there was a big Arab community in Riverside. It's kind of high desert, sprawled out, sparse housing out there, kind of a lower socioeconomic group, mainly, I would say, American Indian and Hispanic, and originally, and so farm laborers, that kind of thing. And so I didn't know there was a giant group of one of the biggest mosques I've ever seen in my life, nestled in the hills, a mile or so from this casino. And that was a week before this all happened, and so it really stuck in my craw, you know, that this terrorist act occurred. And I'll tell you that I think that one thing that isn't crystal clear in the news, one of the many reports about this incident, is like a lot of these terrorist reports, they're not making the connection like Benjamin Netanyahu would, or the Jonathan Institute with his brother, that he started in honor of his brother, I think it was, a study of terrorism, first organized study of terrorism years and years ago after the raid in Entebbe, that you know, they study terrorism. These cells are proxy armies. They're not independently operating crazy people that get an idea from the internet. As you can see, they had physical interaction with people in training camps, most likely. They were radical, whatever radicalized means. They were radicalized years before they met one another. And it's a typical organized cell. And that's a proxy, remind ourselves, it's a proxy army. This is how the countries like Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, I don't know about Saudi Arabia, but various of these 14 or so countries that harbor Islamo-Nazis, Islamic terrorists, this is how they function. This is these armies are trained by these countries. They're proxy armies. So we were attacked by a foreign country on our soil. These are not just crazy people that get a weird idea in their head and hate the government. This is an organized, funded activity by a government outside of our country.
That's how the news media reports it, though. It's just a couple of crazy. They just happen to be Muslim. And you're absolutely right. If they do a little bit of digging, which the mainstream media does, of course, now they've had a month for certain news organizations to take a look at what happened. The guy got wired a bunch of money right before it happened. The guy was over in Saudi Arabia, or he was over, visiting overseas, in contact with all these radicalized groups, in direct contact with people who are out front, ready to attack the United States, got the training, went over to Saudi Arabia, got this other crazy radical woman who is directly involved with the Muslim Brotherhood and the other terrorist groups, got her in here on a what's called a fiancé visa. Your fiancé didn't get in here on a fiancé visa, did she, Doctor?
No, her relatives were from Jamestown. They could trace her relatives back to one of those colonies in Virginia. I can't only trace my heritage back to 1959. But
I was just checking.
I know.
Because this guy went over there and brought over this terrorist woman on a fiancé visa. I've never even heard of that. If I would have heard of that, I'd probably be married by now. I'd go over and get me a fiancé visa somewhere, preferably an Eastern European country, and I'd be married. But this guy goes over there, he brings back a terrorist with him, and they carry out this act. And the news media, like you said, they report it like, just crazy people, and really if we had more gun control, it would never happen. And it's just nuts. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and the connection, that's another psychotic connection. It makes, again, F-, if this was the kind of thinking in medicine someone used to come to a diagnosis, if you look at all the symptoms, where the guns came from, where they get their guns, what their motives are, none of it makes sense the way the news reports it. If someone reported a patient to me with those symptoms, then it would be crazy. I would F-, no license, nothing. That's it. To practice it, because it's not thinking. It's not. It shows awful, illogical thought processes. It doesn't make any sense. And what it really is, again, proxy army attacking us, just like Japan did on D-Day. There's no difference, zero difference. This is like the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor, but a different number of people bombing us. That's all. It's the same thing. And just so is 9/11. It's the same thing. It's sponsored by another country.
We've already had our we've already had our Pearl Harbor, and that was 9/11, and now we're just getting attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked.
It's another Pearl Harbor. What's the difference? It's another Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, crazy. And we've got an administration that is busy trying to bring in 500,000 Syrian refugees, and if you take a look at them, there's no women and children, there's no orphans. It's just a bunch of who knows? The thing is, I don't have any problem with people from Syria. I have some buddies from Syria that run a convenience store over here near me in Lake Los Angeles. They're good guys, and they're Americans.
They need to stop these people.
Yeah, you got to stop.
Okay, the other thing that's crazy is, So that's part one of the crazy part, that we don't recognize this as an attack by a foreign enemy that's organized. It's their army. This is their military. This is how they do it. It's like a SWAT team coming from Japan during World War II. This is coming from a different country. All right, there's that. Then there's the part where our president then turns around in the news and yells at us for not being good people. He yells at America. Like, what the hell is that about? He yells at us as if we're the greatest country that's ever lived, in my opinion. Every culture, again, I'll say it for the billionth time, every culture, color, religion, we get along without killing each other every day. And it's the first time it's ever happened, to my knowledge, in history to such an extent, such a large area. So many people get along. With 1 million legal immigrants coming in a year, and we somehow absorb that. This country is a miracle, and we should pat ourselves on the back every second of the day and thank God for what we have. And I'm not even religious, but thank God for what we have. Instead, our president yells at us when these terrorists attack us, that something's wrong with us. What the hell is that about? Why is he yelling it down?
It's our fault because we're xenophobic and we don't like, this, and we're against that, and we got too many guns, and we're to our religion and Scooby-Doo. Well, listen, I don't know how any politician, I don't care who you are, I don't know how anybody puts up with this. Well, we're just, at this time, at this moment, we're just going to bring in 500,000 Syrian refugees. We don't know where they came from. Our own FBI, Department of Homeland Security, our own agencies say flat out, we cannot vet these people. It'll be impossible to vet these people. And they say, well, we don't care. We're bringing them in anyway. And right now, as we speak, they're being sprinkled all over the country. And it's just nuts. And I'm, although this guy in San Bernardino did not, come here through that particular method, so what? He's another guy that was not, they should have had their eye on. And certainly when he goes over to Saudi Arabia, brings back this other terrorist woman, was she vetted? No. If she was vetted, you would have found out all the connections with her. He had a Twitter account that was like the Syrian, army, death to America, whatever. I mean, it would have been, it's so easy, and they're busy listening to my phone calls. And by the way, that doesn't bother me if the NSA listens to my phone calls. In fact, I pretty much start every phone call off with some sort of terrible thing I say, and then I start talking about sex, because I know these guys are lonely listening to my phone calls. And they need a little bit of break. But they could have listened to 1 or 2 phone calls, this guy in San Bernardino, and they'd have had him pegged. His next-door neighbors knew what was going on. They were afraid to say anything because they didn't want to be called bigots. His own father comes out and gives an interview to some Italian news. Says, oh, yeah, this guy's radicalized. He hated people. He wanted Jews wiped off the face of the earth. And then Donald Trump has the temerity to come out in public and say, look, we should stop people from coming into this country, not citizens. He made it very clear, I'm not talking about American citizens, but we should hit the pause button, and we should stop Muslims from coming into this country so we get a handle on this thing. Place goes nuts, calling him a bigot and saying he's crazy and da-da-da, and yet there's complete precedent for this. Jimmy Carter made an executive order during the hostage crisis in the 70s, an executive order. No more Iranians will be coming into this country. Stopped it cold. No more. And he ordered some 50,000 Iranian students to report to immigration to be interrogated, whether they had visas or not. He ordered, by executive order, Jimmy Carter said all Iranian students here on a visa must report, and if anything as funky is found, they kicked him right out of this country. They deported him ipso facto, and before that, of course, all we got to do is go back to World War II. Another Democrat icon, I'm not going to mention the president's name, but his initials are FDR, and he put Japanese American citizens in prison camps. He put them in gulags. And you're going to complain about Donald Trump saying, wait a minute, maybe we should pause and see who's coming in here and stop it until we get a handle on things? People are nuts. I mean, people are absolutely have lost their minds. don't you think?
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. Without the Republican in office, we're doomed. And I was talking to my mom again this weekend. I went over there. She's 96, and she's been a diehard Democrat. She's one that said she'd rather die than vote for a Republican. So she's asking, who's this Tom Cruise guy? All she does all day is watch the news. That's all she does, 24/7, is watch the news. And she said, who's this Tom Cruise guy? And she started laughing and said, what do you think of Donald Trump? Like everyone, it's preceded or followed by the word Donald Trump in the Democratic language is often followed or preceded by laughter, nervous laughter, but it's followed by laughter like it's a joke, and that's how they do that. That's how they communicate that, because that tells you right there what they think. And then Cruz is, who is Cruz? That's Cruz. Who's this Tom Cruise guy? Or whatever. I mean, Tom Cruise. Who's Cruz? I don't even know his name. What's his first name? I don't even know his first name anymore. Cruz. So I mean, I like him. I see him speak, but no one knows who he is. I don't think he has a hope of beating Hillary. No one knows, and he doesn't elicit passion. Like I said, he doesn't come across like a John F. Kennedy or even Clinton or Reagan. He doesn't have that personality to woo the Democrats. You have to woo them emotionally. We talked about it so many times. I was thinking about this weekend again with my mom's reaction. Who is this guy? I don't even know. Who is he? What is he? I don't know. And he's supposed to beat Hillary? And everyone's going to vote for Hillary. They don't care what she's done wrong. It doesn't matter.
Right. There's a certain percentage, and Scotty and I have gone back and forth on this. Hillary's got a certain percentage of people that are going to vote for her. And I've always said that everybody who voted to re-elect Barack Obama, every idiot, every person in denial about anything in the world who voted to re-elect. Now, I'm not saying about 2008, because a vote for Barack Obama in 2008 was a vote of optimism on a lot of people's part. But a vote for Barack Obama in 2012 was an act of pure obstinance, because people just had so much invested in him they had to vote for him again. When you re-elect a guy, when you re-elect him, you're one of two things. You're in denial, or you're just a complete idiot. I'm sorry. The politicians, time and time again, one of the things they always say, the American people are not stupid. I got news for you. You voted to re-elect, not to elect, but to re-elect Barack Obama. You're stupid. You're a dumbass, and you need to stop voting. You need to just
or they don't like America.
To put your nose down, take your stupid Obama phone, go get some free health care, and shut up. But stop voting. You're an idiot. You're making us all look stupid. Doc, what do you think about people around the world? What do you think they're looking at us and going, what happened to America? What is wrong with those folks?
It's sort of like watching Superman after he found the what was that, the kryptonite, and he has no more power. It's like the erectile dysfunction logo or something. It sucks the energy out of you. You just feel a weakness in your legs when you think about it. We don't have that image anymore. We need someone to restore, like Reagan did, restore the respect and the healthy fear of America. A healthy fear is like the healthy fear you have of your parent. Your parent's not going to kill you, hopefully. Your parent's not going to, but it's important to have a healthy respect and a healthy little bit of fear, or you're going to go down the wrong pathways in life, and that's true for the rest of this planet. They have to have a healthy respect for us to go down the proper pathway in their lives, or they're going to screw something up. All of them.
What do you truly think end game was and is? I mean, what is his end game? Is his end game, is it truly to kind of bring America down to the level of everybody else? Or is he a Manchurian candidate, or what is his problem?
I think that he was raised by an Islamic father, and that he was raised as a religion of Islam until his whatever mid-teens or however old he was, and pledged his life to Islam. Went to madrasas in Indonesia, and he like anyone growing up in an area, that was his early. I mean, I have very fond memories of my early childhood like that. that formative years is when you become loyal to something, and that's what he is. He's loyal to Islam. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's who he is. And he just shouldn't be the president of the United States, that's all.
Is that why I smoke Marlboro Reds? Because I started when I was 12? I'm just kidding.
Well, think of this. Think of everything you feel now before age 14, everything that happened to you up until age 14, how that helped form who you are today. Those formative years are his years were spent loving Islam. You talk to anybody in advertising. Talk to somebody who makes their living utilizing information like this. You talk to the best advertising men in the world, and they will tell you, you got to get them drunk first. Of course, we market to kids. What do you think? Why do you think Budweiser has the cute animals and the Spuds McKenzie and all that? Of course, they're marketing to kids because of brand loyalty, because of exactly what you're talking. Why do I drink Miller Lite beer? People think I'm nuts. I mean, they think I'm crazy. I love Miller Lite beer. Why? Because that's the first beer I put into my mouth when I was 15 years old. That's why. And you know why else? Because of those commercials with Rodney Dangerfield and all the sports heroes. Remember that? How did that go? Tastes great, less filling. And when I was a kid, and that's why I'm brand loyal. But think about this. Think about religion. What percent of current Catholics were born into Catholic families? And why did they become Catholic? Why did they become Jewish or Protestant or Islam? Why did they become Catholic? Because that's how they were born and raised. That's what it's ingrained in their soul, and that's what's happened to him. And with his name, if you have any doubt, think about his name. Are you kidding me? He has an Arabic name. I don't know any Jewish white guys that have Arabic names. I'm a Jewish white guy. I was adopted as a Catholic. I don't know any Catholics that have Arabic names, but I know Arabs that have Arabic names and Islamists that have Arabic names, and that's what he has. So if there's any question, you look at what's his name.
Yeah.
Why would someone name him that if it's not his culture? Why not? Why would they name him John Smith? Why that?
Well, on the face of it, though, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
no, but it identifies the culture.
Yeah, obviously there's plenty of Arabs in this country there's millions of Arabs in this country that are not trying to blow me up, but
but there are a lot of Asians that name their kids American first names. It'll be, John Ching or whatever. They'll use an Americanized first name. Not Barack Obama. He has a Arabic first name, which means his family heavily identify with that culture growing up. I mean, that's what they wanted him to be. Or to identify. I'm just saying that it kind of fits the whole pattern.
No, you're right.
You're right. And I think it answers the question, what does he want? He wants us to be less like we are and more like they are. Have less and them to have more. Divide everything up.
Well, when you ask somebody what are they, and if you're talking about religion, they won't tell you how they feel now. They'll tell you how they were raised. Like if you ask me, what am I? I'll tell you, I'm a Methodist. Why? I don't even know the difference between Methodist and Lutheran. Honestly, I don't. I think one of them gets to. I think one group gets to dance and the other one doesn't. I'm not sure, but I think dancing's stupid, so I don't even care. But I'm a Methodist, and the reason I say that was because I grew up at John Wesley Methodist Church. Now, I didn't. I went bowling instead of to confirmation class, but that's beside the point. I still say that I'm a Methodist. Now, do I go to a Methodist church now? No, I don't. Why? Because it's too far away. I go to the Baptist church that's just down the block. It doesn't make me a Baptist. I'm just saying, you're right. People identify with what they grew up as. And even people who completely reject the Catholic faith, I'm a recovering Catholic or I'm a cafeteria Catholic, they'll still tell you, I'm a Catholic. However, blah, or I'm Jewish, and for Barack Hussein Obama, I was got in an argument with somebody the other. Well, he's a Christian. Yeah, he's not Christian. He's not. He decided to be a Christian when he decided to run for office in Illinois. Because if he would have, what?
He's not acting like he's a Christian, in my opinion. He's acting like he's Islamic.
You can stick a branch in your eye, and it doesn't make you a tree. He decided that he was not going to win local office, a state legislature in Illinois, unless he said he was Christian. Do you think he would have won if he'd have said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Muslim"? No, of course not. He would have gotten his ass kicked, and he almost lost anyway. He had to cheat to win. But ever since then, he's been talking about being a Christian. Look at the church he went to. This church in Chicago with this Reverend Wright. I mean, you got to say that's Christian? I'm sorry, that's not. I know what Christian sounds like, and that's not.
No, it makes sense as an anti-Semitic church too. Those countries hate the Jews. They hate Jews.
Of course.
That's what they do. That's what they do. Their majors. I hate the Jews. Yeah, that's what they do. They hate Jews, and they want to kill them all there and here. I'm sure.
And they always talk about what great parents that Michelle and Barack Obama are. Let me put something toward you. If John McCain took his little kids to a KKK rally type church every Sunday morning for like 12 years, do you think that would be good parenting? No. And yet, that's what Michelle and Barack Obama did. They took their kids to that hateful, bigoted, anti-Semitic, anti-American church and put their little babies, their little kids, sat in that church listening to that crap for 12 years, and yet they call these people good parents. They are bad parents. Michelle and Barack Obama are shitty parents. They're the worst. To raise those kids in a church like that makes you a bad parent. It makes you a bad person. It makes you're not a Christian. You're an anti-social, disaffected loser. And I can't believe that that's our president, but that's the truth. Sorry for did I quote scripture there, or did I just cuss a little bit, Scotty?
Yeah, actually, you did, because by your fruits you'll be known. And you both really quoted scripture. You can tell by looking, like Dr. Brownstein, he's not acting like a Christian. And you can look at anybody in any denomination, I don't care what you are, Baptist, Methodist, Church of Christ, Lutheran, all recognize the United Church of Christ as a far-out schism, full of hatred. They hate that not only the Jews, but they hate America. It is a very liberal mentality. It isn't a Christian mentality. And the Bible says you can look and you can know. And we can look and we can know. And we can also look at the way Barack Obama was raised, where he went to school, the mentors that he had around him. The least case scenario we could say is that he has a very fond place in his heart for Islam.
Well, to say the least. I mean,
on that note, I have to get going. I have some sick people.
It's 8:07 on the West Coast, and that means there's been 3 people sitting in a waiting room waiting to be cured by Dr. the Stars, Dr. Mons Brownstein. So we're going to let him go. See you next Monday, Doctor, and I hope I talk to you between now and then.
Be healthy.
Well, there he goes. Another morning with the doctor. Boy, I tell you what, Scotty. We used to have the doctor on at the end of the show. He used to be the closer. I like him better as the opener. What do you think?
Very, very true. He always has a great perspective on things. And I'll tell you, if our listeners don't know it already, Dr. Brownstein didn't start out a conservative. And he wasn't taught to be a conservative. Rodney Lee Conover didn't spend 10 years showing Dr. Brownstein the way. Dr. Brownstein left liberalism and moved into the conservative camp on his own, with his own critical thinking, and that's the way he is. He looks into something, and he looks for truth. And that's always so important, because oftentimes we think there's 4 or 5 truths to something. No, there's generally in life one truth. And he's looked and he's come over there, and man, he's got some powerful things to say, Rodney.
I know. The way he articulates is really awesome. And his training as a doctor, I believe, is what allows him to do that, because it's exactly what you're saying. When you're a doctor and you're trying to find a cure, or you're trying to find symptoms, or you're trying to find out whether something is actually happening, or if it's just happening in a person's mind. And he spends a lot of time treating depression. You can't be politically correct because you're going to kill somebody. You're going to, hey, listen, I would give you penicillin, but, it's really not the thing. You can't be thinking in any other way except critically. Critically and absolutely in a nonpartisan, I know that doesn't apply to medicine, but to make a political analogy, you have to be nonpartisan when you're a doctor because you're only looking for what you're talking about, Scotty, and that is the truth. In other words, the real answer, the factual answer to a problem, because if you come up with something that's not factual, if you land on a solution that is in fact not the correct solution to a problem, well, guess what? You've got a misdiagnosis. You've got you may make the problem worse with what you're doing, and you may in fact be causing the patient harm, and that's the Hippocratic oath. You shall do no harm. If you're sitting there trying to treat somebody with some sort of preconceived notion, with some sort of prejudice in your thinking, well, guess what? You're a crappy doctor. I mean, that's the last doctor you want to show up to is somebody that's going to treat you based on ideology or based on here's what people in politics usually do. They have a certain way they think, and then they go out and they try and find information that will support the way they already think, the conclusion they've already come to, right? Well, if you did that as a doctor, can you imagine somebody walks into your office and you say to yourself, you know what, I think this woman has chlamydia. And no matter what she comes up with, you try to find evidence that will support your conclusion that she has chlamydia. Well, maybe she just has a sore throat. You start treating somebody for what you are hoping will be their problem. Well, guess what? You're not going to be a doctor that long. At least I hope you're not. I guess with Obamacare you could be. But I think that's what, to a large degree, what allows the doctor to think so clearly and articulately when it comes to politics. And that's why I love having him up front of the show, because he helps me sort things out, which is nice too. Dr. Brownstein used to be my doctor. And darn it, Scotty, I'm going to take conservative. What do you think about that?
I think you should. And did you notice the meme that I used for the show today?
No, I didn't. I was on the road, and I think they say
I used my good old friend Bubba Guillaume. Most people would remember him from Blazing Saddles, but he is mostly, I think, famous for the Pace Picani commercials of the 90s. Remember him? He's a friend of mine, lives here in Dallas area, and I used
New York City.
That guy. That guy. He's a good friend. We're going to have him on the show one of these days. He stays really busy. He's on every billboard, I think, between here and North Texas. But he's really a great guy. But it's on Obamacare, the meme. So, of course, well, I'm trying to find it so I can get the exact words for it. Let me find it here real quick.
Isn't it? But don't they say meme? Isn't it called meme?
I don't like meme. I always call it meme. It's kind of like I always call it instead of Ethernet. Ethernet to me sounds like something that's going to put you under.
Okay. Well, no, I didn't see that. But, of course, whenever you talk about political correctness in the world of movies, there's two films that always come to mind, actually three. And that one of them is The Bad News Bears, and the other one's Animal House, and the other one is Blazing Saddles. These are three movies, and you could throw Caddyshack in there too, but I'm not going to. Animal House, Blazing Saddles, and The Bad News Bears. Three of the greatest movies ever made. They're just funny from front to back. They've got character, they've got story, they've got pathos. It's all there. Those are also three movies that you could not get made now because of political correctness. Now, they remade The Bad News Bears with Billy Bob Thornton. The funniest thing about the Bad News Bears remake was at the end of the film. Now, if you remember the original Bad News Bears with Walter Matthau and with Tatum's, what's her name? She got married to the tennis pro, to John McEnroe.
Tatum O'Neal?
God, what's her name? Tatum O'Neal, yes. The really lovely little child actor, Tatum O'Neal. She eventually would go insane. But she was so good in that film. And there was just these great little actors all over the place. And Walter Matthau running the show. And it was just so, that movie, you watch the original Bad News Bear. If you just want to feel good about yourself, you watch the Bad News Bears. There's a story, there's lessons in it. But at the end of the film, Walter Matthau learns his life lesson. And the Bad News Bears end up losing, but he gives every kid a beer. These kids are like, little leaguers, and he gives them all a beer, and they all go out in the field and they shake up their beers, and it's just a really good time at the end. Now, the little kids are not sitting there drinking beer, but just the fact that Walter Matthau would give them a beer, and in the remake, in the role of the coach, the manager, the same role as Walter Matthau, in the remake, at the end of the movie, Billy Bob Thornton gives each kid a beer, and he turns to the camera and says, it's O'Doul's. There's no alcohol in the beer. They had to make it clear that they were not giving a beer to fictional characters in a film. And that's just one little tiny example, but it was just so glaring. I'm watching this remake, and I'm going, God, I wonder what they're going to, because the whole thing is politically correct. The entire remake is just 100% politically correct. And I'm thinking to myself, what are they going to do at the end when the coach gives everybody a beer? And he does it, and he goes, well, that's O'Doul's. It's not. Thank God it's non-alcoholic beer. He says something like that. I'm telling you, Scotty, I laughed so hard. It was the only funny part of the movie. But Blazing Saddles is the same way. There's no way you could remake or make Blazing Saddles or Animal House or any of them, because you can't be funny anymore. You can't. Political correctness we've talked about a lot, and at the core of all political correctness is a lie. Being politically correct is the same thing as saying, I'm a big fat liar. I cannot be trusted. If you talk to somebody and they use politically correct language, you can't trust that person. They're lying to you. I'll give you the most blatant example. The phrase African American. That was not invented by some black guy. The phrase African American was invented by guilty white liberals who are trying to control your life. It's political correctness. They objected to the word black because it referred to a person's skin color. And they said, well, we don't do that anymore. Now we say African American. I got bad news for you. If someone from Egypt, Scotty, comes to America, becomes a U.S. citizen, you don't call him an African American, do you? No, you either call him an American or you say, well, he's an American, he comes from Egypt. But you don't call him an African American, do you? And yet,
no, and
where's
Egypt?
Where's
Africa?
Egypt? The last time I checked, they may have changed the maps on me. I'm not sure. But get on Google Maps and Google Egypt. It's in Africa. Now, I have a friend, a really good friend. She's Dutch. She became an American citizen, white as a ghost. She's whiter than I am. She's from South Africa. Call her an African American? No. But the last time I checked, South Africa was in Africa. And yet she's not African American. So what is the deal with the phrase African American? Well, it refers to a person's skin color. It has nothing to do with where they're from or their ancestors or what part of the world. If you have no connection at all to Africa, let's say you're from Jamaica, you're called an African American. Now, what sort of assumption is that? That's a prejudgment. The phrase African American is a bigoted phrase invented by guilty white liberals, because at the core, Miss Scotty, is what? A big fat lie. And in the case, and here's another one: Native American. You're not an Indian. You're not an Apache. You're not a Seminole. You're a Native American. Scotty, help me. There's no such thing as Native Americans. There was no America back then. How can you be a Native American before Amerigo Vespucci went to the New World? There's no such thing. The phrase Native American is bigoted and refers to some sort of notion that if you say Native American instead of Indian, and we all know that Indians got their name because Europeans thought they had landed actually in the country of India. That's why they're called the West Indies out in the Caribbean, and that's how they started calling Indians Indians. But to say that they're Native Americans, again, Indians didn't make up that phrase. And in fact, if you go down to Florida and you call a Seminole Indian a Native American, they'll slap you silly. They're getting rich off being Indians. Are you kidding me? Are you nuts? Do you think that the Florida, is it the Florida State Seminoles? Is that the team, the college team? Whatever. Yeah. Do you think for a minute they're going to change the name Seminole because it's a racist mascot? Hell no. They and the Seminole Nation down there, they make millions of dollars from jersey sales and from other paraphernalia related to the college. You go up to the chief of the Seminoles and say, hey, guess what, man? I'm going to start a group, and we're going to get these racist bigots to change the name of the Seminoles. And he'll slap you. He'll hit you with a tomahawk. I mean, he'll want to scalp you. He said, don't screw around with that. We make millions of dollars of that. Yeah.
On this issue, what is hilarious is with the name Redskin itself, the stats are incredible. There's only about 4% of what we would call the Native American population that doesn't like the term Redskins. It is an honor. And I'll tell you, there's not just the team, the Seminoles down there in Florida. They got a whole county called Seminole County.
And county after county. Listen, my high school was the West Aurora Blackhawks. And they just recently stopped, the halftime guy from wearing the Black Hawk, wearing the feather hat, whatever they call that, and all that, because, of course, it's racist. But do you know that the Apache word for redskin is Oklahoma? The state of Oklahoma means redskin. I mean, it's just so freaking ridiculous. And yet, this entire country is bought, we got to change the name of the Washington Redskins. Well, I find the word Washington more offensive than the word Redskin, and so does the average Redskin. The Atlanta Braves. The word brave, Scotty, is a bigoted term, but not according to anybody that has anything to do with Indians or Indian tribes or anything else. Look, the Indians, in many, many ways, got screwed way back when they roped off an area and said, okay, this is now your Indian nation. But, land is very scarce in the world. There's only so much of it. And the way you get land is in a good old-fashioned war. And that's how America and South America and all these countries came about, good old-fashioned wars. The idea that Indians, tribes, did not fight and murder and wipe out, in many cases, other Indian tribes is ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous as the notion that if Columbus didn't sail to America, that somehow North America would be roamed by horseback Indians is insanity, and people are just nuts. The problem is the reason that you don't know who the Indians slaughtered to get their land is like my buddy Jeff Wayne says, you can't file bark. That's the only reason you don't know about it. There's not a written history. There's a couple of paintings on the wall with blood. Okay, fine. But don't tell me that I'm a racist because I say the word Indian. No, you're a racist because you use the phrase Native American. Scotty, who's a Native American? Who was born makes them a Native American?
None of them. But I'll tell you,
the only person that are Native Americans are white Europeans that were born back then, and their descendants. Those are the only Native Americans.
You just basically informed me, though, that Gordon McRae and Shirley Jones are severe racist.
Well,
because they not only yelled Redskins, then they sang Redskins.
Well, how about David Frizzell and Shelley West? They had the famous song, right. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. One of my favorite songs. In fact, I gotta put that into the queue for Conover U because I love that song so much. It makes me cry. Anyway, you're the reason God made Redskins. I think I'll do a remake.
Well, and this conversation gets real personal with me because I went to Tulare Union High School in Tulare, California, as a Tulare Union High School Redskin, and they're taking the big beautiful painting down. They're changing the it's insane when it's an honor. It was given as an honor to our Native American friends. It was not given in any way to be derogatory. And it's celebrated. And it's like 96, 97% of the Native American people in this country are going, what in the world are you guys talking about? Why is this? But it's another example, Rodney, and I always, you know me, I always like to go back to the foundation. It is the exact same tactic that the left uses with the homosexual community, that they use with the black community. They take it's oftentimes things that are going on with gay marriage and bathrooms, men and women in bathrooms, isn't coming from the gay community. It's been hijacked by the ultra left, and it's their pattern, and that's what they've done with the Redskins.
They used to, in America, we used to make fun of and we used to deride, and in fact it was in history books, where in the Soviet Union, when Stalin took over, they would go to the archives and to the libraries, and they'd get all the photographs, and they would, they didn't have Photoshop in their day, but Photoshop has kind of become a verb, and they would literally Photoshop out pictures that they wanted erased from history. And they would go in and they would delete references and they would delete people from photographs and from history books. And we, in America, we'd make fun of it. We'd say, look at these idiots. They're trying to actually delete history so their people won't believe that this person existed or this person ran the government or this person was about, you know what I mean? And it used to be just something that was derided and universally, said, this is part of, we would say this is part of communism. They try to fool the populace. They try to control the populace by fooling them. And yet, what are we doing right now? The left is trying to get statues pulled down, get names changed, get people delivered. They want Andrew Jackson off of the $20 bill for something. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a slavery thing. Yeah, I think it's because he supported slavery. Maybe he started the KKK. Who knows? But that's what they're doing now. It is a communist. It is a Alinsky. It is a Mark. It's right out of the Marxist playbook. You start deleting things from your history that you don't want people to know about. That you try to fool the populace in order to control the populace. You fool the populace, and that's what they're doing. To me, it's hysterical. And I would laugh if it wasn't so sad. They're actually pulling down statues of people. They want to pull down statues of Thomas Jefferson. They want to pull down people that own white people that own slaves. I mean, it's not. This is not a vote for slavery. This is just a vote for A. You know, in the first draft of the Constitution, it said slavery was illegal, and the only reason it didn't go through because of Southern Democrats who depended on slavery to make money for their livelihood, for their very existence in a pre-industrial United States. Now, these guys knew it was going to be trouble. The Founding Fathers knew that if they took the slavery clause, the anti-slavery clause, out of the Constitution, they knew it was going to be trouble. But at the time, it was the only way to unite the United States, the colonies at that time. How many are there? 13 colonies. They knew this was the only way we're going to get this U.S. Constitution passed. And I think it was Sam Adams that even said, we're going to fight a war over this. If we don't hold our ground and pass this anti-slavery thing, there'll be a war. Sure enough, what happened, Scotty? The Civil War. The bloodiest war in U.S. history. Brother against brother, 600,000 people lying dead in a field. An entire generation of men gone. Now, for the men left, that must have been a pretty sweet deal because the ratio must have been awesome right there, right after the Civil War. But that's a whole other thing. I almost said something really crude that came out of a movie. You can't go in and start deleting history now. That's the good part because of the Internet. We're always going to know, maybe not 100% truth, but we're always going to have the truth available to us with a little bit of Googling and less Wikipedia, more Googling. Am I right? I mean, isn't that really what the left is trying to do here with political correctness? They're trying to erase history.
Definitely, and that's why one of the reasons I get concerned about the future with the Internet and things like the FCC is doing, because the left knows that they can't hide the truth from being out there. Now, you have to be a responsible citizen and look for it, and you have to look and make sure what you're looking at is right. I'll tell you, real quick. Sometimes I just want to strangle people, but in a good group that you and I are fully well connected to from Herman Cain days, somebody posted something about Trump calling Scalia a racist by the remarks that he said. And I turned around and I watched the clip. And not only did Donald Trump not call Antonin Scalia a racist, he complimented him and basically said totally the opposite of what was in the headline. And so as responsible citizens, we got to look, again, for the truth, but we've got it available. It's out there. We don't have to rely on Tom Brokaw or Sam Donaldson anymore to get us our information. We can go out there and we can find it. And there is a lot of crap out there, but the truth is out.
Speaking of the truth, you need to go to www.joeforamerica.com. Why do I say that? Because Scott Osborne, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, has an article up today. Why don't you tell me about it? What's Scotty's article out there today? It's a good one.
Man, I'll tell you, Rodney, it always happens in Texas. And one of the reasons it happens in Texas is because we fight here. But we've got an actual mosque that was closed down because of terrorist ties in the largest terror trial going on in the United States for funding terror. And you've got this mosque sitting over there, not too far from me, really, kind of over near the Six Flags over Texas area. And they've been shut down because it was found out that the mosque was created for the sole purpose, not of worshiping Allah, not for the purpose of sitting down and praying. Nobody has a problem with that on a political level. But because it was designed purposely to fund these terrorist groups, and people have died through the money, and they've connected all the dots while the president is trying to blame it. Is he blaming this one on a YouTube video? I lost Rodney. But it's crazy. And there's another article, Rodney, though, that I think is more important, and I want to take the time to talk about this for a minute. That will be up as soon as our editor gets it up there, about a man named Peter Replunis. I can't ever get his last name right. He is a 97-year-old veteran, Rodney, of 3 wars: Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. And he was a combat photographer during those 3 wars, which is really a dangerous situation. While everybody else is carrying machine guns, he was carrying a pistol and his camera, but took over 40,000 pictures during those 3 wars, which many of were used in our tactical, the military's tactical, what they were doing. And he was able to, he's been traveling around the country in his mid to late 90s. Really wonderful man. But we want to keep him in our prayers because he was just in Korea about 6-7 weeks ago, sitting there at the DMZ, and now he is in hospice there in West Virginia, and not doing well. Looks like we're going to lose him, but that's going to be another article, folks, that I want you to take time, pay attention to. We've included his address, his P.O. box, so that people can send him cards. He's loving to get cards right now from all over the country. But just a wonderful, two opposites, Rodney, 2 opposites. Here is a story about, you and I have the freedom right now to say, Obama, you're an idiot, because these guys have gotten out on the battlefield and fought for that freedom.
Yeah, it's a sad irony that these guys, you know, they're young men, and some of them even too young to join the war. They lie about their age. And they got in the war. It was really World War II was really the last war that we were not sure if we were going to win. When you think about it, every war since then, we pretty much know we could win if we try, and we're not even unloading everything we could unload. We're fighting these wars based on what, you know, good or bad press most of the time. But World War II was different. World War II, we weren't sure who was going to win. I mean, it was up in the air. We ultimately prevailed, but listen, there was a really good chance we were going to lose that war. And at some point in time, we were losing that war. And we pulled it together, and these young men went over, and they trudged across Europe in their bare feet, some of them, and to kill Nazis. They squeezed themselves into little tin cans, went underwater to fight Tojo's Navy, and they dragged themselves across North Africa in tanks to fight Rommel, and they died, and they saw their friends die, and they saw things that they could never talk about, and they won. They went over there and they won. Because, why? Because there was people trying to take away our freedoms. Really, right. At the end of the day, that's the reason. There were people intent on taking away our freedom. So what did we do? We went up there and literally kicked their ass. I don't know what these World War II guys must be thinking. They must watch TV and go, why the hell did I do that? Why did I risk my life? They're taking away our freedoms anyway. You know
Rodney, there is a TV show on. Have you seen The Man in the Castle? Which it takes America, modern day America, but it shows what it would be like if we had lost that war. And Germany is in control of the West, or the East, and Japan is in control of the West. And I watched a couple of episodes. It is really kind of eye-opening. The life could have been very, very different had we not had some of those men. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the ones that were underage. There was a plethora of young men in this country who literally were 16, 17 years old, lied about their age so that they could go fight for our freedoms. And, big guy, Michael Moore asked Bill O'Reilly one time a question, and I was so mad at Bill O'Reilly that he didn't just shove it right back in his face. He says, what would you send your son to war? And Bill O'Reilly gave some stupid answer, but the correct answer to that is Bill O'Reilly should have said, if my son decided that he was willing to sacrifice his life for his country, I'd stand behind him 100%. Bill O'Reilly didn't give the right answer. It was stupid. But, these guys, the left goes crazy because they're going to go to war and they're going to die. That's not the point. The point is these guys are putting up the sacrifice. It's a personal sacrifice that they make. It's a personal decision they make. We have an all-volunteer Army. We've almost always really had an all-volunteer Army. There's been times when we've drafted, but the bulk of our military men and women have made that decision on their own to go serve and sacrifice. And, man, we've got to always remember, never forget.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here trying to put myself in a World War II guy's shoes and watch TV, and they're just one after another right is being infringed upon, drip, drip, drip for the last 50 years, and they're kind of thinking, why the hell did I go over to Africa and Europe and the South Pacific? Why did I risk my life for these chumps who just turn right around and they're just giving it away? That must drive them nuts to watch TV. I mean, it must really chap their ass. They raised a bunch of, and I'm not blaming young kids. I'm not throwing blame in it, but they got to be watching things, going, hey, dudes. We fought wars to give you these freedoms, and now you're just treating them like whatever. Now you raised a bunch of you ask the average 20-year-old about the Constitution. Do you think the Constitution is good? And they'll not just think about it. They're being taught that the Constitution is a bad thing, and capitalism is a bad thing, and that freedom is a bad thing, and that America is a bad thing. I mean, I'm not being cliche. They're literally being taught that. They're literally being taught that we had no business fighting World War II. We have no business fighting any war. Now, there are some wars that are better than others, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to fight a war. Listen, I'm very anti-war, very much so. I remember I was kicked out of an Atlantic City casino because I criticized the first Persian Gulf War, which I think was stupid. Sorry, guys. I think these are wars in the Middle East are stupid. You can sit there and say they're well-intentioned, but I think they're stupid. When we were attacked in 9/11, and believe me, it was an attack. It was in all the papers. When we were attacked in 9/11, I'm not for sending young Marines over to the Middle East to die, get their nuts blown off. I'm not for that. I am against that, 100%. I was against the first Persian Gulf War, and I'm against the second Persian Gulf War. Why? Because we just go over there and young people get their nuts blown off. That's why. And I don't like volunteer armies. I don't like it at all. There should be a draft. Do you know how many wars there would be if we had a draft? I'll tell you, there'd be far less. If you have a problem with the people who attacked us on 9/11, as I do, then you must have a problem with the people who tried to blow up the World Trade Center earlier that decade. I think it was 1993. The first attempt to blow up the World Trade Center was done by a lunatic working out of a federal office in Baghdad. Okay? And you have a problem with that, too. And if you have a real problem with terrorism, then you ought to be pissed off at the people who are financing the terrorism, sending over 100,000 Marines. This war in Afghanistan, Iraq, has been going on longer than World War II. Can you imagine? And you're for that? Who's for that? I'm not. I'm against it. I don't think it was funny to watch General Schwarzkopf, show the videos and laugh about some guy getting blown up on a bridge. I don't think that's funny. People sit there and laugh. Oh, look at this smart bomb going in and blowing. It's like it was like this reality TV show on the news every night where we would show us blowing people up. That's not funny. You think God thinks that's funny? God has a sense of humor, but that ain't part of it. If you have a problem with the people who attacked us in 9/11, bombs over there and put them into the right tents, like Reagan did. Drop a few bombs on the heads of the people that are really responsible. Drop a big one. It doesn't have to be a nuclear bomb. You want this idiot in Iran You want these mullahs, you want these Khomeinis, you want this, what's his name? God, I can never remember his name. I'm a dinner jacket or whatever his name is, Aqua Velvet Man. You want him to shape up? You want him to stop with the nuclear program? You take one of those 2,000-pound conventional bombs, fly over the country of Iran, and drop it in the middle of the desert where there's been guys having sex with goats. Just drop it. And then call up Aqua Velvet Man, I'm a dinner jacket, and say, hey, dude, look out your window to the west. I want you to watch. And when he sees what a 2,000 megaton bomb can do, or whatever, the biggest bomb they got, and say, the next one's on top of your head if you don't shape up. Okay? That's what I want to do instead of sending in Marines to get their nuts blown off. I want to have a clandestine, a CIA, an intelligence community that goes out and does the legwork and gets a guy like bin Laden, also from Saudi Arabia, as were the hijackers from Saudi Arabia. That's funny how we bombed the hell out of Afghanistan, the country that we helped defeat the Soviets in 1979. That's funny how we bombed the hell out of those guys, but we leave Saudi Arabia intact. Okay, great. What have we solved? Nothing. We finally establish, a bulkhead. We win a war in Iraq. What does our president do? And he gives it away. Listen, I don't want to fight a war that some idiot like Barack Obama is just going to give away. All those people that were injured and killed, all those young men and women, it's all for naught. Sorry. It's all for naught if you give away the victory. And much like the guys who fought World War II to keep our rights, it's all for naught if you just give it away later. You were going to say something, Scotty. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just laughing. You keep me laughing. I always tell everybody, even on a serious business conversation on the phone, you keep me busting up. It's just you. And I generally spend most of our shows on mute because of anything but my laughing in the background.
No, I want you to don't put yourself on mute. I need to hear reactions because, I'm being a little bit funny, but I'm serious when I say I'm anti-war. I'm anti-sending in kids to get their legs blown off. I'm anti that. And you know what? You know what should be mandatory in this country? Mandatory should be charitable service, a couple of hours a week or whatever down at the VA. Go see people that get their legs blown off, and then you tell me how pro-war you are. Because you believe me, you won't. Believe me, you won't be. And when you see how people are treated, you'll think twice about socialized medicine. And when you see how people are treated, you'll think twice about these idiots that puff up their chest and say, we need to send these wars these cool names, Operation Get Your Nuts Blown Off or whatever they're calling it. It pisses me off. And then they get a guy on TV, look at the replay, how we blew somebody up. Oh, that's cute. That's a cute story. Let's all laugh about how great we are. And then they say, well, you're just anti-American, Rodney. The hell I am. I'm not anti-American. That's BS. There's nobody more pro-American than yours truly. And that doesn't mean that we have a war that lasts 10 years. And why? And then I hear these idiots complain, we're just going to war for oil. I wish that were the truth. I'll go to war for oil. I got no problem with that. You want some oil? But the thing is, the United States is so rich. We're so rich and powerful, we don't need to go to war for oil. We just write a big check. If we want some oil, there you go. Here's some money. Send over some oil.
If we were going to war for oil, we would have gone after Saudi Arabia a long time ago.
We'd have all the oil we want. You don't think we can keep the Straits of Bermuda? You don't think we can keep the Straits of Bermuda open? That's a joke about martinis. We could keep that open with no problem, and we'll have all the oil we need. But guess what? All we got to do is approve a pipeline or two. And right now, the United States is producing more energy than any country on Earth. All we got to do is open things up with Mexico and Canada. Well, as far as I'm concerned, people in the Middle East can eat that. Can anybody answer me, Scotty? Even you? Can anybody answer me why Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait in the early 90s? Can anybody answer that question?
For oil. He was steal oil.
It was over oil. Now, why was Saddam Hussein so mad at the little country of Kuwait? Why? Because Kuwait was slant drilling into the country of Iraq. That's right. If anybody knows what slant drilling is, it means you start out in your country and you drill diagonally into somebody else's country. And you steal their oil. That's what was going on. And he said, if you keep doing that, I'm going to blow the shit out of you. And they amassed all these troops. They amassed the Iraqi army was massive. They amassed all these troops on the border of Iraq and Kuwait. And they were all there. Okay? It's not a secret. It's not like they snuck out in the middle of the night like Lawrence of Arabia and all of a sudden attacked with a bunch of camels. By the way, what is a camel called that has two humps? What is it? A camel has two humps or one hump? The other one has another name.
Oh, one's dromedary, one's...
Which one's on the dromedary? I think the one hump. Wait a minute. Whatever it is. The point is that they weren't on camels. They had tanks and they had modern military equipment supplied by the United States. And there was Saddam Hussein. Just amassed with troops ready to go into Kuwait. What did the United States do, Scotty? They gave him a wink and a nod. That dude went in there and started blowing out. All of a sudden, we got to get him out of it. We send a bunch of troops to die at war. And then, as they were retreating, there was basically one highway. There was one 2-lane highway. I have to laugh at this. In Iraq, there's one 2-lane highway that goes to Kuwait. Okay, and as they were retreating, we just took target practice on them. We just absolutely slaughtered the Iraqi army, and we blew up the infrastructure in Baghdad and major cities in Iraq. To this day, little kids die of dysentery because that infrastructure is still all blown up. Oh, you're just a left winger. You're a bleeding heart. No, I'm actually just one of God's children, guys. That's all I am. A little baby that dies of dysentery because we didn't have the balls to go in and do what's right. We didn't have the nutsack to go kill who we needed to kill. Instead, we got to blow up somebody's infrastructure. Just some little baby 10 years later that dies of dysentery because of that. You feel good about that? I don't. Sorry. In the following 10 years after the first Persian Gulf War, 50,000 babies were dying a year because the infrastructure was blown up. You happy about that? It's a cute story? I don't think it's a cute story. God's sense of humor. You think I'm a left-winger? You think I'm a bleeding heart? I got news for you. I'm not. I'm not a fan of George Bush Sr., not a fan of George Bush Jr. Sorry. You know who I am a fan of? Ted Cruz. That's right. That's who I'm a fan of. Ted Cruz. You think Ted Cruz would send these the kids to die at war? I don't know. We'll see. Because he's going to be president. What do you think about that, Scotty? You think people are screaming at me right now? You're just a liberal. I'm not a liberal.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with you, Rodney. I think nobody really wants war. I think the percentage of people that really want war are a very small fraction. I think there's been times when it's been necessary to fight. But I'll tell you, it is a horrific thing, and it's a very serious thing when we send our men or women across there. I'm loving the fact, though, Rodney, that we are getting the technology, and you're in my lifetime, basically, that it allows us to not have to put so many people on the ground. We're able to accomplish a lot of the things that they accomplished in World War II with boots on the ground. We're able to accomplish that with technology today, which is
we've always had it, though. We've had it. We've had it since Reagan. Reagan lobbed a bomb into the tent of Muammar Gaddafi, okay?
Oh,
from the White House. After he blew up that airline. Yeah, he just lobbed a bomb into one of Muammar Gaddafi's tents. I think he killed his niece and his nephew or some crap. And you know what? Muammar Gaddafi didn't act up for about 15 years. In fact, he became our ally. That's what happened. Because he did something smart. And yeah, we do have the technology. Sure. Yeah, why? Because we lobbed a bomb into one of his tents. Hello? Muammar Gaddafi, the 80s are calling. Why don't we do that with, Muammar Ahmadinejad? Why don't we do that? No. We're too busy making treaties with him. That'll be great. We got this country, Iran. I don't know. Listen, I know a lot of Iranian people. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with Iranian people. Stop thinking that. Now, there's something wrong with these crazy lunatics that want to blow up Israel. Yeah. But my God, have you ever met an Iranian? These people love freedom. They love Western culture. I tell you what they don't love is stupid Barack Obama. I'm sick of this guy. I really am. He's like food poisoning. I just can't wait to crap him out in the toilet in 2016. Who are we going to get, though? We're going to get Hillary? How many points does she start out with, Scotty? What's the score?
You know what? I really don't think. It all depends on so many different things, and one of the things that it really depends on is momentum and motivation when you get to the actual voters. Hillary's got some problems with the left that Barack Obama didn't have, and they're part of the reason why she lost that primary in 2007, 2008.
Well, who are they going to vote for?
The far left hates her. They always have.
Well, who are they going to vote for?
You know what? I think you just have a percentage that just doesn't vote. Now, the question is how big is that percentage? We know we've got a lot of people that voted Democrat over the last two elections that came out and voted that hadn't ever voted or hadn't voted in years, voted for because he was black, voted for all kinds of reasons. What does she actually scoop up out of that, I think, is the million-dollar question, and we won't even really know until we get to November and see exactly what she picks up. But there are so many variables, I don't think you could even, and I like to calculate that kind of stuff, I don't think you could even come close to calculating it right now.
I can tell you right now, everybody that voted to re-elect Barack Obama votes for Hillary. Every damn one of them. The only way we win is to mobilize our base. Who does she lose?
I think she loses a bunch, and I think we pick up a bunch. I'll tell you, the one thing Donald Trump has been doing.
Who does she lose?
I think she loses the motivation for a lot of anti-war people because she's always had that issue. That has been an issue that has been her problem for 2 decades.
Who are they going to vote for? You're going to say they stay
I don't
home?
think they do. I think they just don't take the time to get up and go out and vote. And we know the Democrats have that problem. That's one of the reasons why they send vans to go pick people up and take them to vote. Here in Texas,
they do that though. They do it.
They do it. But
all of the above. And you know what? I don't. There's something I don't hear anybody talking about except me and you, and that is how many women are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman. I'm talking about Republicans. If you don't think that's a phenomenon, I think it's very naive to think that, women, Republican and conservative women, they're not going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman. You are so wrong. You are so wrong. That is a phenomenon that nobody's talking about. How many women are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman? A ton of women are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman. No one is factoring that in. Do you know how many women that have never voted in their life are going to come out and vote because Hillary's running?
Definitely. And see, that's why I say I don't think we even begin to calculate it because that's a factor. You've got pluses and you've got minuses. And what's going to be the outcome is if the pluses are bigger than the minuses, she's going to win this. if the minuses are bigger than the pluses, but there's so many different factors that generally haven't really been there. We look back at Barack Obama, and the big factor was the black vote. Not just the percentage of the black vote, but all of the new people that came out and voted because he was black. I don't think that you have
there's
the
no
women.
Oh man,
I'm not
trying to make a joke. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, you don't have I don't think you have the strength in the percentages with the woman vote, but you start out with a huge base of women where the black voting base is really not super big when you start comparing.
But you're making my point. You're making my point. The numbers, the sheer volume of blacks in this country is no pun intended, pales in comparison to the number of women in this country. In fact, the biggest voting bloc in this country is women. Bigger than any bloc. 50-point-something percentage of voters are women. So when you talk about taking a certain percentage of that group and switching them to Hillary because she's a woman, you're talking about making the black vote irrelevant because blacks are going to vote for Democrats. I mean, you can make a case that maybe they'll come out and vote for Trump, but even if they do, even if there's a certain percentage, it pales in the comparison of the number of women that are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman, conservative Republican women that are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman, and women who have never voted in their lives are going to come out and vote for Hillary because she's a woman. And how about young women? Young women who have never voted, probably wouldn't vote, probably couldn't find their place to the voting wherever you vote, they're going to come out and vote for Hillary because she's a woman. All of that put together, compared to the number of far-left people that may stay home, oh, Scotty, come on. It's overwhelming in her favor.
Here's what you do, though, Rodney. You take and you move that towards your direction, but I can pull it back some. Now, the question is how much some? Remember what Anita Andrews said. I'm going to tell you, I've been really paying attention to politics through Anita Andrews' eyes over the last couple of weeks since we interviewed her, and looking at the issue of trust. Now, there's a couple of other factors that you have to add into this. When we get past the primary season and into the general election, and Hillary Clinton gets on that campaign trail on the national level, we've got one huge benefit in our big pocket, and that is she sucks at being on the campaign trail. She's always been bad at the campaign trail. She does not inspire any kind of trust. Even with her in her own party, her trust numbers are awful. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, we could go back and forth. Where it's going to end up, I think, is almost like spinning that big lottery dial in Sacramento, because there's so many factors involved in it on both sides. That, man, where it's going to end up, I think is going to be harder to predict this time around than it has in any election, presidential election cycle of our history.
Do you think blacks are going to wake up on November 4th, 2016, and they're going to go, you know, that Hillary, she's a bad campaigner. I think I'm going to vote for Ted Cruz.
No, but I do think there is a big chunk of voters, black voters, that they've had in the last two cycles that are just because it's not Barack Obama anymore. I think you lose a few there. I think the far left ones, like Hillary anyway, lose a few there.
But you're talking about a small percentage of what? This country is 12% black or something like that? You're talking about a tiny percentage of 12%. A tiny percentage of 12%. When you're talking about blacks that vote, let's take blacks that vote. Of that group, you know how many are switching over to Ted Cruz? How about zero?
See, they don't have to switch.
Zero.
That's just it. They don't have to switch. All they have to do is
vote.
I don't want to take the time and go do it on an individual level.
No. Scotty. I'm talking about blacks that vote. I'm not talking about ones that may stay home. There's a name for that, propensity to vote, propensity to voter, or something like that.
Oh, but those numbers are already calculated into the big picture. So we know that George Bush polled about 6-7% of the black vote. Of course, later on elections, that number went a little bit down. But John Kerry only got I think it was about 87% of the black vote. You've got that big chunk that's always be there.
But it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant because it's such a small amount in the totality of it. Makes it nominal. When you're talking about women, you're talking about 51% of the population. You're talking about a huge, even if you take a tiny slice of that, it's massive. It's massive. A tiny slice of female voters is bigger than 7 or 10% of black voters.
But you got to remember, we're not talking about the big chunk. We're not talking about the whole pie. We're talking about the remnant. We're talking about the remnant. Obviously, a good portion of women vote Democrat in every election. So we start there.
Yes.
The variable I'm talking about is what is on the other end of that. What's the remnant? And it's not going to be huge next to the already are just given. They just always vote that way. What we're talking about is where that remnant is going to end up. And when you start putting all those remnants together, boy, you could be right, Rodney. It could be way the other direction. I don't know. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the variables are so huge when you start. It's kind of like when you start throwing percentages together on that Real Clear Politics chart. You look at all the percentages at the bottom of that chart, and there's a good 20%, 20 points down there in a bunch of people that have got 1 and 2 points. And it's all going to depend on what ends up happening on Election Day. Because you've got this group, you've got this group, you've got this group, you've got this group. Some of them are positives, some of them are negatives. Are the positives going to outweigh the negatives? I don't think we could even come close to calculating right now.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen on Election Day. There's going to be a massive, massive amount of women that hold their nose and they vote for Hillary. Women that vote for her just because she's a woman. Women that have never voted before come out and vote because she's a woman. Republican women that go in and vote for her because she's a woman. Conservative women that have never voted for a Democrat in their lifetimes. Women that vote in every election cycle. Women that vote every single time that have never voted for a Democrat will be voting for her because she's a woman. Massive amounts. Nobody ever calculates that into it. And somebody, you can't convince me that's not going to happen. Because I got news for you. It's going to happen.
I think if it was any other woman besides Hillary Clinton, I think you'd be absolutely correct. I think Hillary's got enough negatives that I don't think it's massive, Rodney. I really don't think it's massive.
It's a gender.
I think if it was even Elizabeth Warren, she'd be better off. She's not honest either.
But it's a gender thing. It has nothing to do with the person or their trustworthiness or anything else. It's
what
vagina versus penis.
Anita Andrews says that's the only reason behind it. And man,
Anita's wrong. Anita's wrong.
We need to get Anita back on the phone. I need some help here.
Listen, Anita is not wrong in her overall assessment that voters vote on trust. But we're talking about a very specific phenomenon here. You're telling me, well, if it was ever any other woman, Rodney, you'd be right. No. A woman that wants to vote for a female president doesn't go, well, I would vote for a woman, but it's Hillary. They don't do that. They say we're voting for a gender. A gender. People who voted to reelect Barack Obama. You think they sat down and they thought it through? Well, the last 4 years have been kind of crappy. We really know a lot about Barack Obama now and what a horrible president he is, and to a large degree, what a horrible person he is. And you think they sat down, they made that calculation, and they went, well, if there was any other black guy, yeah, but not Barack Obama. No, they voted to reelect him, Scott. They didn't consider anything. They didn't, just like women who are going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman, not because she's a particular type of woman, not because she's a trustworthy or non-trustworthy woman, not because she's got stuff in her past or da 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 da. In fact, I think that works in her favor. I think she's a sympathetic character to women. I think she's a woman that's gotten trounced and stepped on and humiliated in public and treated like crap, and she's a victim. I think that works in her favor. And if you think the media was in the tank for Barack Obama, you have not seen anything yet. Not only are they going to be in the tank for Hillary because she's a Democrat and a woman, but they forsaked her last time around for the Black Jesus. They owe her. And you can see it already, Scotty. You can see it already. They're not even trying to hide it. They're not even pretending that they're carrying water for Hillary. No. I'm right on this one. And when Anita Bryant says people vote on trust, she's not talking about this specific situation. She's talking about overall, which I totally agree with her. But I bet if you confronted Anita, and let's have her on the show Monday. Next Monday.
Let's bring her back. I'd love to have her in on this because I'll tell you, Rod.
Why? Go ahead.
We have about 100,000 people end up voting in our elections. 100 million people voting in on our elections. And on both sides of the aisle, you've got a big, huge chunk that are just, it's the constant. It's the K in math. It's the constant. They're just going to be there. What you and I are talking about is what is going to be what turns back and forth in the middle of that. And so when you take those two constants out, that really slows down your numbers big time for being massive. They're just not. You've also got, and there's the reason why I say I don't think we can know this. It only takes a small percentage of votes in some places around the country to turn it one way or the other. It doesn't take massive amounts of votes. And I think once you start adding up, this is a positive, this is a negative. It's like a list of like 40 different numbers as you go down. You don't know until you get to the end, and boy, you don't have to have too many numbers that change on that to make the outcome different. And I think you're absolutely right in everything you're saying about Hillary Clinton. I just don't think that you can calculate it now because for every one of those things that you say, I can throw something else back that is also into the mix that counteracts some of that. Once you counteract everything, you end up with what's left. You end up with what's the remnant. Is it going to be a positive and push her over the edge? Is it going to be a positive and push us over the edge? And when it all comes down to that middle ground, that middle remnant of what's left after all that, I don't think we can even come close to calculating it.
Well, I think that I really hope that Trump doesn't screw around too much and not drop out and heavily endorse and campaign for Cruz, because to me that is what can put Cruz over the top against Hillary, because everybody knows the bottom line is who can beat Hillary. Everybody knows that. It's not been true in elections gone by, but that's the deal this time around. Anyone who thinks Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee is completely insane. He's in there for one reason, and that's to make Hillary look younger, more in the center, more moderate, and prettier. That's why Bernie Sanders is in there. Anyone who thinks Bernie Sanders is a serious candidate has got mental problems. You are as mental as Bernie Sanders himself. If you're trying to win the Democratic nomination, you don't go on national TV with Hillary standing right next to you while the nation is watching and say something pro-Hillary. You don't say, I wish we would stop talking about her emails. The single biggest negative that Hillary has right now is that she's a crook, is that she's been selling out the country of America to any foreign country that has some money to give to the Clinton Foundation, and she deleted all those emails in violation of U.S. law. Bernie Sanders got up in the middle of the debate and said, we should stop talking about her emails.
As much fun as we're having, Rodney, I got to push a button.
Oh, never hear? you are. How happy must you be? You know what we're going to, Jennifer, say hi to Scotty. Jennifer is the editor of collegefix.com. We only got a little 15 minutes, so we're going to rush right into her. Are you actually here? Because I love you. I don't hear her.
Jennifer?
God,
she's
he's
there.
pushing the wrong button.
Unmuted.
Hi, sorry, I'm here. Can you, hello?
Yes, she is. Hey, we're still undefeated, huh? Still undefeated.
Hi, guys. I gotta say,
yeah.
I must do what? Okay. Well, so I've been here and I've been listening to two of you, and I felt like I was listening to my parents argue. I was like, "Don't fight, you guys! Don't fight!" Like I wanted to jump in and be like, "It's okay, you guys." I mean, I was like, "Oh, I've never heard you guys fight before."
Oh, Jennifer, you should hear some of the back and forth we've done on politics over the years, personally on the phone. Rodney and I absolutely love doing this. It is always great banter. It's very rare that we disagree on anything, and so we do kind of have a little bit of fun when we do disagree. We've had a handful of discussions like this. No, you're right, I'm right, but man, I guarantee you one thing, Jennifer and our audience. Rodney and I love each other dearly, and it's not a fight.
Yeah, we're actually just trying to teach each other something, Jennifer. We're not actually fighting.
Yeah, I know, but it's I've never, it's been a year, and I'm I can't remember the last time they went at it like this, so it was interesting for me to listen to. So.
Well,
and you guys were both right. You guys both had a good point.
We're united in wanting to beat Hillary, and we're just trying to figure out the best way. That's all. But you got to be excited as I am. We're still undefeated.
Oh, wait. Who are we talking about? Are you talking about the Panthers?
We're talking about Peanut Tillman, the great.
Yeah.
Peanut.
No, I know. Well, because you're a Bears fan, so I was like, oh, that game yesterday was ugly. The poor Chicago with Cutler at the helm.
Whoa.
It's always a disappointment. It's like.
We got to lose
the guy
every
just
game.
cannot.
We got to lose every game, Jennifer. We want draft picks. No more wins, please. No more wins.
Yeah.
I was not.
I feel sorry because now that I'm rooting for the Panthers, now that my nephew-in-law is playing for them, it's so exciting because I know Cam can make it happen. It's no matter what, we could be down and there's 2 minutes to go, and I know he's going to pull ahead. I know he's going to get that touchdown. When I used to have to root for the Bears, and Cutler was, we had put all our eggs in the Cutler basket, you could forget it.
I cannot stand Jay Cutler. Even when he has a good game, it makes me sad. I don't want to root for him. I don't like him. I think this new coach is John Fox. I think he's as big as idiot as the last one. I just hope we lose enough games to get some decent draft picks. And I'll be honest with you, not a Cam Newton fan. Sorry. But huge Peanut Tillman fan. So I could not be happier for that.
Can I give him a little plug on something? He wrote a book, actually. Yeah, Charles Tillman.
Get him on the show.
What?
We'll promote his book. Get him on the show. We'll promote his book. Come on.
Well, he's living in North Carolina. He's in the middle of headed to the Super Bowl, but I'm over here.
When the season's over. Okay. Of course.
But he wrote a book called The Middle School Rules of Peanut Tillman because he talked a little bit about growing up, an Army brat and some of the challenges he faced, believing in himself as a young athlete, having big dreams and being the product of divorce and everything. So it's a real great story if you have a middle schooler who loves sports. About overcoming adversity and staying positive, and he is a big Christian, big role model on and off the field stuff. Something to throw out there.
One of the greatest Chicago Bears that ever walked onto the field at Soldier Field. Of course, I read his book. It's great. Peanut Tillman is a legend in Chicago. How in the world they would ever let him walk away from that? I would pay him just to stand on the sidelines, honest to God. He gets hurt
he's a good influence on the team, because he keeps them grounded. He's a good influence reminding that, the players, hey, let's stay focused. He's so positive. He has such a great love of the game. So
even though I don't like Cam Newton, I don't like that. I do not like people
Why,
that
is he
celebrate.
too smug for you?
And you know what? He celebrates. He does that stupid act like you've been there, okay? Act like Peanut Tillman. All right? Stop with the celebrating. It's embarrassing. Anyway,
no, it's a little cheesy. I'm not going to lie. I agree. It's a little cheesy.
The way he taught, it's like, dude, don't be an amateur. Come on. And who would name a kid after a car part? Cam. I mean, it's like transmission leak on. Who does that? Anyway, I am a big Panther fan. I'm a big Jennifer fan. I'm a big Peanut fan. What is going on? And I'm going to let you and Scotty talk here for a minute. What is going on in the world of college campus, which is Jennifer's forte?
Well, one thing I was going to mention, because I know that, Rodney, you appreciate humor and you like some funny jokes. And my colleague Dave Huber, he's an editor at the College Fix. He kind of took this political correctness run amok trend on college campuses to its furthest extreme, because where does it end? We change a word here, we ban a word there. You can't say this, you can't look at that. Thomas Jefferson is offensive. The word illegal alien is offensive. You can't say this, it's sexist. You can't say that, it's misogynist. So he kind of took it to the extreme in a humorous, satirical sort of way, but it's got a valid point. So he kind of took all the words that haven't been attacked yet. You guys might recall that over at Yale and some of these Ivy League schools, the folks that are live-in deans inside the dorms are called masters. It's an old tradition to call them masters of that particular dorm. Dates back centuries, but because the term master, like 7 degrees of separation from slavery, they found it offensive. They wanted it done away with. A couple of colleges have done away with the term master. So he was like, okay, well, let's take that a step further. Bachelor's degree. Well, that's overtly and blatantly sexist, right? We can't be calling them a bachelor's degree because then that's celebrating bachelors. What about unmarried females? Don't they count? So his suitable replacement suggestion was unattached degree. Or what about the term provost? It's problematic because it's biased against amateur boasts. Same with professor. What about apprentice fessers? He's just kind of taken it to that whole extreme. Dean's list could be kept for male students, but there should be an alternative for females. Perhaps it could be dubbed a Diane's list. The Greek system, that's way too Eurocentric. That's got to go. Minor, is offensive because it implies something is not as worthy of study. For instance, someone is majoring in, say, Spanish, but another student's minoring in it. The latter's implicit message is that the former's degree isn't as deserving. Adjunct. The second syllable sounds too much like junk, disparaging to part-time professors. It goes on and on and on. Another term, lector, is heard almost exclusively in Europe, Yale being an American exception. But the title invokes images of the cannibalistic Hannibal Lecter. So that's a major microaggression there. The humanities may be seen as engaging in speciesism, as some students and faculty may identify with a species of an organism other than human. I mean, because we have 6-year-old men or 55-year-old men living as 6-year-old girls nowadays, which is apparently completely acceptable in today's day and age. So who knows, The bottom line is,
are there any studies about men like me who identify as rock stars? Because I do that.
I'm sure we can find a category for you, Rodney. There's absolutely a category for everyone. It's a big rainbow, and we're all invited.
I want to start lecturing. I really do. I want to go around the country lecturing as men who identify as rock stars, because that's me. I read that story about the middle-aged guy who left his wife and kids, and he got adopted by a family, and he was living as a 6-year-old. That's like a bad Monty Python skit. You know what I mean? I honestly thought it was we were going to read the next day in the paper where the whole thing was a put on. But it's not, is it? It's real.
I'm telling you, I'm so revolted and disgusted by that story. And the fact that man, do you know he's living with young people? Like, the parents are so messed up. By the way, I read that the dad that is accepting this man's delusion is also sexually involved with him, which is so disgusting. I can't even begin to tell you. But they're also living with young people. He has like normal age siblings, 7, 8, 9. I mean, they should be put in child protective services. This is insane. It's insane. I can't believe. Now, this is in Canada, so who knows what they're thinking, but how are we come to a point where a 55-year-old man can pretend that he is a 6-year-old girl and dress like that and have a sexual relationship with his quote-unquote adoptive father and live with 6, 7, and 8-year-old siblings, quote-unquote, the adopted siblings, and we're all just going to look the other way and say this is completely normal. It's probably one of the most disturbing stories I've read. I can't even remember in how long.
We're going to do more than that. We're going to do more than go along with it. We're going to celebrate it. We're going to say how brave he is. We're going to say how brave the adoptive parents are. Can you imagine, I mean, for a second, what this guy's actual children, and he's, 57, so his children are probably, right around 30, 28 to 35 probably. Can you imagine what his actual children are thinking? Like, Dad's completely gone off the deep end, and we're going to celebrate it. We're not only going to accept it, we're going to treat it, we're going to treat it like Bruce Jenner. How courageous are you to come out with your true identity? Well, you're not courageous. Is anyone crazy anymore, Jennifer? Does anyone get put into the category of you are batshit nuts?
Yeah, I know. I agree. I want to be like, we living in the Twilight Zone? I mean, this is insane. It just goes to show you how far our country has fallen, gone. I don't know. It's scary in a way.
Well, I've traveled through Canada, and that's a weird country. I don't care what you say.
Is it?
Canada. Oh my God! You show me a normal, successful Canadian, I'll show you an American. The first thing they do is run for the border with any modicum of normalcy and success. I mean, that's a weird country, Canada. First of all, number two, what sells newspapers nowadays is weirdness. It used to be this kind of thing would be, you'd see it at the supermarket checkout in the world, the Mad Weekly News or some sort of tabloidy, crazy whatever. But then regular newspapers, People Magazine, and all these periodicals that are getting put out of business by the internet, they all figured out, well, if that's what sells, that's what we're going to do. So that's why you see these stories in the news. This crap has been going on since the beginning of time. It's called mental instability. It's been going on forever. I mean, a long time ago, over 20 years ago, when I was involved in reality television, before it was even called reality television, the craziness started pitching stories about prospective reality shows that were just nuts. They were nuts. So I wrote a screenplay that had these little reality shows just for jokes, and they were the future of reality television. And that's 20 years ago. Every single one of those crazy-ass shows that I wrote, just for a joke, are actually on the air now. And I ask you, what are we going to see in the next 10 years? And the answer is we're going to be seeing more of this Bruce Jenner type stuff, where people are living in situations where 25 years ago they would have been committed to an insane asylum, but they're actually being called courageous and, good and great. So to sell newspapers, I think it's to sell advertising. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I mean, here we are.
Well, now you know what it's called now? Nowadays it's called clickbait.
Yes, it's called clickbait. That's why we have a story over at www.joeformerica on this very subject. Clickbait. But But the conclusions, thankfully, that we make are similar to what we're talking about right now, which is, look, folks, this guy's sick. Now, not everybody in that family is necessarily sick. The idiots that adopted this 57-year-old thinks he's a 6-year-old, they may be idiots. They may be sick, no doubt about it, but they may have children that are perfectly normal. I mean, these kids are being, but they're also influential. So they might go, well, every family really should have a 57-year-old, 6-year-old. So that's where the problem comes in. Is you got normal, you have the potential for normal human beings being influenced in that manner. I mean, am I off base?
Not only are you not off base, quoting scripture, Rodney.
Of course.
Paul told Timothy things would wax worse and worse. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 6, there's a very, a rather well-known scripture. Jennifer, you probably are familiar with it, about children. And in order to raise your children, making sure that you put their faith right there. You teach them as well as put it as a part of your conversation. You mark it everywhere. And the concept that Moses is getting across to the Israelites there, the big concept is if you don't stay firm to what is truth, you're going to wander. And the more you wander, the more you're going to wander. And so we have this thing that what was acceptable to our parents, we kind of tend to go a little further away from. And we end up where we're at. But what are our children going to accept? Well, we've created a new norm, is what we've done, and then they're going to take it a little further. And generation after generation, you get further and further away. It is the pattern of history. It is the whole pattern of the first 11 chapters of the book of Genesis. That's how you end up at the Tower of Babel. That's how you end up at the time of Noah. But man, Rodney, you're right. It waxes worse and worse, and it is the reason why I do what I do every day, trying to help keep pulling that back. Because, boy, I worry about my 3 nieces who are 7, 10, and 13. I worry about what it's going to be like when they're 40. I really do.
Jennifer, what gets you up in the morning? Why is it, now we know Scotty's deal, what motivates you? Why do you do what you do? Is it just similar because you have kids, I know?
I mean, I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but it's the helmet of salvation that gets me up in the morning. It's knowing that we were created by a loving God who sent his son to die for us so that we could rise with him and live in heaven forever. I mean, on my worst day, on those days where you are hitting your head against a brick wall, you're in the gutter, and you're like, everything is going wrong, I just take a deep breath and I know that this is but a fleeting moment, and my real joy in life is knowing that I will spend eternity with a loving creator. And those are what gets me through the dark times, knowing that, I'm a child of God. So when I get upset about the 2016 election and how it's going, when I get upset about the way America has turned its back on its Christian roots, when I get upset about how there's so much evil in this world, and there's so much evil in this world. If you look at what is going on in the Middle East and Africa, I mean, human trafficking, the horrible things that are being done to young people, that is the real horror of this world. It's the evil that is being perpetrated on young children. And it could really get you down if you think about it. So I just hold on to the helmet of salvation, the promise that in the end there will be no more tears. When the New York Daily News gave their stupid headline, God isn't fixing this, and people replied, no, he already has fixed this through his son Jesus Christ and the promise of salvation and eternal life with him. So you know what? That's what gets me through my days. It honestly does, because we're living in dark times, and there is hope. We can still have hope, and that's the beautiful thing about dealing with some of this stuff, is the hope that we can hold on to every single day, in good times and bad. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for. It's a little deep, but I'm throwing it out there because that's how I really feel. That's me talking sincere.
Well, that's what I was looking for, was you to talk sincere. I mean, that's all I ever asked for. Speaking of sincere, what do you think about your guy Trump lately? How's he been doing?
you know what? It's like, okay, can he just not be such a toddler, like call people names? Like, why does he have to do that? Like, that's my only thing. It's like, seriously, like, just when I'm like, okay, I could see this Trump thing happening, he goes and acts like a 4-year-old. And I'm like, is that what we want running our country? Because it's like, it's just like, it drives me nuts.
I can explain it.
Stop calling people names like you're on the freaking playground. You know what I mean?
Trump,
like, that's the thing.
Trump has lived his whole life never hearing the word no. That's the essence of the problem of Trump. Trump is not just a CEO. Trump is the boss, and Trump gets what he wants in every form and fashion. Now, I love what Trump's doing, but let us not forget that Trump is a douchebag. Okay, let's not forget that. And Jennifer, every once in a while, he reminds you that he's a douchebag. But this country needs a douchebag. Okay?
Yeah,
he
does.
And the reason we need a douchebag is not because he's going to be president, because he's not going to be president. We need somebody that will expose the politically correct, polished wannabes in the press, in the Democratic Party, in everyday life. And that's why we need a douchebag, because that's what he's doing. That's what I appreciate him doing. And I'm sure I've quoted scripture. Scotty, take over.
Well, you didn't, but Jennifer, I can tell you exactly why he's doing that. And he is. He's got his problems. I don't view Donald Trump as a presidential hopeful. I view Donald Trump as the CEO of the primary season. And here's what he does, and this has been the pattern. We can look back and see his pattern now. He did it on immigration. He did it on the wall. He most recently did it on Muslims. What did he do? He stood up and above all the top of all the other candidates pushed a giant hole in the wall of political correctness and said, we need to get rid of it. We need to just stop Muslims from coming in here. Opening up the dialogue for those people below him. When he throws names, I love it when he throws names because he's just doing this little name-calling thing. He's got two purposes for those snowballs. Some of those snowballs are meant for a knockout punch. Some of those snowballs are meant to be thrown back. I guarantee you right now, the discourse going on between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz that we have not seen before, if you look at it, it's very light on its edge. But what is Donald Trump doing for Ted Cruz? At a pivotal point, he's putting him in the news media, especially in Iowa. And so they throw things back and forth, and then they compliment each other. He's done the same thing with Ben Carson. Throw some snowballs back and forth, and then compliment each other. And it's a pattern. And Rodney's been saying it since the beginning. I've been saying it since the beginning. He's there as John the Baptist to prepare the way, to level the roads, to level the mountains for Ted Cruz underneath him. And I think it's a brilliant tactic. I am fully confident that over the last 30, 40 years that he has been, most of my lifetime, he's been a CEO of his own private business, that he doesn't do that in business meetings. And if you look at the 98% of what he says, if you listen to his speeches, 98% is great. But then he's playing the media with these snowballs. He can say, Carly Fiorina's ugly. And what does it do? It takes the news media and it turns them on their side. And I don't view him as a presidential hopeful. I view him as a CEO of the primary season. Because of Donald Trump being there, we have had a totally different primary season than we've ever seen before. I'm a firm believer that if Donald Trump was not there, we'd be dealing with Jeb Bush right now. But you can look at those charts and you can see the moment that Donald Trump started rising, Jeb Bush ended up at the bottom, and he stayed there. Chris Christie, some of these other guys that in past primaries, everybody had their few weeks of a bump. Really, Scott Walker had one at the very beginning before he ever even entered the race. Carly Fiorina had a kind of a decent bump. Rand Paul never did have a bump. He started up at about 12% and just dropped. It's been a Look at the charts. It's been a totally different primary season, and I accredit all of that to Donald Trump manipulating the media, manipulating the establishment. I'm loving what he's doing. I love it when he calls for a third party, when he says, I'm going to run for a third party. I don't believe he's going to do it for 5 seconds. But we know from foreign policy that Ronald Reagan never told the Russians he wasn't going to invade them. We also know that Ronald Reagan probably never had any ambition to invade them. But, boy, he sure made sure he let Russia think that he would invade them. And that's what Donald Trump's done. And Carson pulled the same thing this last week. I think him and Donald Trump are going. What are they doing by that? They're stirring up and holding their thumb down on the establishment that is scared to death right now, and that's exactly where we want them to be. I've always wanted Ted Cruz to be president. Since I helped him in his Senate campaign, I've wanted him to be president. I was worried up until the last few months that it was going to be a lottery ticket in order to make it. And I think Donald Trump has prepared the way for it. I think it's made it possible, and I'll be forever thankful to Donald Trump for that.
Well, you made me feel better, I guess, about that then. If you're saying it's a strategy and not just him being an immature, douche. So, well, I guess I can take a little hope in that.
I think it comes naturally from him. But I think.
Okay, fair enough. Well, like I said, that's an interesting perspective because I suppose it is keeping Cruz in the limelight now. If they're kind of going back and forth at it, then that does give Cruz the spotlight. Not that Cruz has seemed to be doing great, lately on his own too, but there is that silver lining. So yeah, you made me feel a little bit better, Scotty. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Rodney, you know what time it is? Did we lose Rodney? Rodney's there.
I know what time is it. It's 12 minutes past the time where the people who were listening live were cut off, and now they're listening on the podcast.
They are listening, and we want to thank everybody that is listening right now because they have listened to the podcast. Not only did they listen to all of the show and Rodney and I bickering back and forth, they've been listening for 2 hours and 15 minutes now. That was the reason I didn't see you on the studio. See, Jennifer, when I go to talking like that, I start pacing. And I was walking around the house, and I didn't have my eye on the studio, and I went, oh, no, it's time for Jennifer to be on there way past, and went over there, and sure enough, there you were. But it's time to tell everybody goodbye. Great conversation, Jennifer, as always, and I am right there with you. The battle was won on the cross, and Satan's had control of sin over this world for a long, long time now, but there's always the winner, and it doesn't matter what happens. In fact, we find that during times of oppression is when the church grew the most. It's times when everything is great that people tend to forget God. That's the pattern that we find in the Old Testament. And so we do our prayer. We've still got a good, strong Christian base in this country, which is absolutely wonderful. Rodney, you have anything, last things you need to say, or are you hiding somewhere? I better check the studio. He might have gotten bumped off, and if he did, he can't call back in. Oh, yeah, he has dropped, Jennifer. It's just been you and I.
Oh, okay.
That's where he's at. He's gone, and he can't call back in after we go into archive. So Jennifer, as always, and we'll see you next week. I imagine we'll have one more show, and then we'll probably take a break around Christmas and New Year's. I'm doing that a lot on Blog Talk, but we'll be there next week to talk about all the craziness going on. I have to give it to you. Look at what goes on in the colleges very long before I get really, really angry. How you do it as a living. I have the utmost respect. It is not easy. We want to remind everybody we got Conover U on Mondays. We've got American Sovereignty Radio on Tuesdays, Saturday Symposium on Saturdays. Got some great guests coming up. We're working on for January. We're going to have some really fun guests. We're working on Deborah Wells, who played Marty McFly's girlfriend. She is a great Christian out there in the L.A. area who is doing some fantastic things. We're going to have her on a show here soon. We're still working on Phyllis Schlafly. That'll be the one where you'll hear me hit the floor. I'll just pass out the moment she starts talking. Rodney will have to carry on the rest of the conversation. And all kinds of stuff going on. We got all kinds of people lined up. We're going to have a great year coming up. Of course, every week discussing the election, discussing current events. Sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Tune in next week for Conover U, the morning show.
Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can tell you that Geico could save you money on car insurance. But since money talks, why not go straight to the source?
Hey, Harry's Money here. And the day Harry went to Geico.com and switched his car insurance was the day I got to hang around. Finally, boys bonding, bada bing, bada boom. No wonder Geico has 97% customer satisfaction. Personally, I give him 100, but that's just my 2 cents. That was funny.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.